Welcome to the Ango Show. Today we got tons of wrestling news stories to uncover. We got a lot to talk about. If my voice sounds a little bit raspy, I'm sorry. I've been battling this cold for the last few days, and we don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about wrestling. And actually, I want to just kind of kick things off, honestly. I want to talk about AEW. You guys know AR Fox? Well, it appears AEW has made a contract offer to AR Fox. Now, whether or not he's going to be joining will be very interesting, but AR Fox was on AEW Dynamite. He was teaming up with Top Flight against, of course, Death Triangle. AR Fox is somebody you may have seen on AEW television via AEW Dark. You might remember him from his work in the indie scene. Obviously, a longtime veteran in the business, and AEW continues to keep making signings. Now, the real question here is what exactly will AEW do with AR Fox, and what plans do they have long-term for AR Fox? Because, you know, one of the big things here with AEW is the fact that they sign people and, like, nothing gets done. It's unfortunate. It's one of the realities of AEW, and I think he's a hell of a talent. But also at the same time, too, like, I do wonder what is next for AEW when they make these signings, when they make these contract offers. Like, what are their plans? And it's just the way AEW is wired. It's a different company from other wrestling companies. You can come into the company, get a big spotlight, and then literally it could all be gone. Great example is Miro. Malachi Black was a great example. Obviously, now he's taking some time off and he's coming back. But nonetheless, you guys understand that AEW has made some signings, and it's nice to get excited about signings. I think it's a great thing to see when new faces come into the company. But the reality is nothing happens right after, and it just kind of becomes a little bit more disappointing. So nonetheless, we do know that AR Fox has been offered a contract to join AEW. Now, whether or not he joins will be interesting. Great talent. I thought that 6-man tag match was awesome. But also, it's just something to keep in mind. What happens next? That's the big question mark. And of course, we got to talk about WWE. Two possible returns. Well, this one seems to be confirmed. Chelsea Green, obviously we had been talking about Chelsea Green for a minute now. Obviously there's been a lot of talks about Chelsea Green and the Cardonas, you know, possibly a 2-for-1 type of thing. Now Dave Meltzer talking on the Wrestling Observer Radio, he noted that those in WWE are talking as if her deal to return is done. And he says WWE bound is most likely. It's talked about within the company as it's something that is actually happening. There's no clarification as to whether or not she's put pen to paper, but she just did finish up with Impact, so it obviously would make sense. Now, keep in mind, too, guys, if you guys didn't know, with Impact Wrestling, there's been a situation where they kind of wrote her off TV, and now she's coming back home. So the belief is that she is going to end up back in WWE. Obviously, we've been talking about Chelsea Green a lot on this channel. I do want to make it very clear when it comes to Chelsea Green coming back to WWE. I think she's hell of a talent. This is not her first stint in the company. I really hope Triple H gets it right. That's how I view it. I think it's incredibly important that Triple H gets it right. And I think for Triple H to get it right, he's got to use her. Got to put her in meaningful storylines. And I'm sorry, but if your entire women's division is built around Bayley, Bianca, Sasha, Naomi, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, you know, it makes it very difficult for some of these other faces to rise to prominence. And I think WWE's in a situation where they brought in Candice LeRae, and yes, she's been on TV, and yes, she's in a storyline, but it's not like she looks like it's not like they've presented her in a way where she could be like a legitimate women's champion, you know, or a legitimate contender. And through that, you got to do booking and build her up and stuff like that. But the same thing could be said for Shotzi, who is now getting a shot at Ronda Rousey. You know, will WWE completely swerve everybody and put the belt on Shotzi? It would be a nice change, that's for sure. But ultimately, it just looks like Shotzi Blackheart is being fed to Ronda Rousey. So, you know, when we see these types of things, it does kind of become a little bit of a concern when you kind of realize that, like, not a lot of women have been given a chance to really take it to the next level. And we're starting to see some changes with Triple H doing that, but that's my concern with Chelsea Green. Is she just going to come in and be another woman on the roster, or are they going to actually do something with her? I do like the signing, though. I think it's a good signing for WWE. I just don't want to see Triple H make that mistake. And I also want to be very clear, too. If you could bring Chelsea Green in with Matt Cardona, and I've talked about this briefly before, but if you could bring them both in, like, you got to do the Cardonas versus Miz and Maurice at WrestleMania It makes a lot of sense. And that would be a pretty big time feud, right? Working with The Miz is a big deal, especially at WrestleMania. The guy gets a lot of mainstream coverage and press, and he's just really good at what he does. So if you're not going to put Chelsea Green immediately in the title picture, which is fine, you got to do something with her that's meaningful, and that could be something that is meaningful. How does WWE book Chelsea Green, on the other hand? That's a whole different thing that we'll have to look forward to and see how it goes. And for our final topic of today's video, guys, you remember we spoke about Bronson Reed quite a few times on this channel. Now we actually have some more insight as to what is happening here. So it appears that Dave Meltzer has confirmed that Jonah, aka Bronson Reed, has received an offer from WWE formally and is now deciding whether or not he wants to stay with New Japan Pro Wrestling or go back to WWE. This is fantastic news. You'll never hear me talk poorly about Bronson Reed. I feel like this guy is absolutely incredible. I think he will do absolutely well on the main roster. When I think of the mid-card championship belts that have been elevated thanks to Triple H's booking, I think Bronson Reed will be a hell of a champion, whether it's the U.S. Championship or the Intercontinental Championship. I think this guy can get it done, and I think he can do very well under Triple H's leadership. I also want to make this very clear, because this is so important to mention. The Bronson Reed that you saw in NXT at the time versus Jonah in 2022, this guy is so much better than he was, and he was already good back then. So the fact is, he has improved so much, I just think there's money written all over this. I do. And so, if he is contemplating New Japan or WWE, I personally would like to see him in WWE, but that's because I feel like his last run with WWE was cut short. It was abrupt. It was a very strange situation. And again, this is kind of how it goes in WWE when Vince McMahon was there. Vince McMahon didn't know what to do with NXT talent. I bring Bronson Reed right away. Squash matches, give him a proper introduction for those who may not be familiar. Have him do squash matches. Then build out a very nicely carved out, highly detailed feud. And I think that right there could be a massive win for the WWE. So ultimately, really interesting to see what Triple H does. I feel like the product has improved. It's not perfect, but it's improved a lot. I think you need to have some new faces on the show. More people getting pushed. More storylines. There's a lot of things you could do. But if you're bringing in Chelsea Green, if you're bringing in, Matt Cardona, if you're bringing in Bronson Reed, it's going to be a different feel for WWE. But I feel like Triple H can do it in a way that makes sense. Let me know what you guys think down below.